So today we're going deep on hip hop and rap,
Oh, yeah.
like from the very beginning
Okay.
all the way to like where it is today.
Right.
It's a huge story.
It is a huge story.
And we've got a ton of cool stuff to dig into.
Yeah. I think people are going to be surprised by some of this stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So to get us started,
Yeah.
when we think about hip hop and rap,
Right.
we have to think about the music that came before it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't really understand hip-hop without knowing about the music that it grew out of.
Yeah.
Like jazz with all that improvisation.
Right.
And blues with how it told stories and stuff.
Yeah, so powerful.
And then there's funk.
Oh, man, the groove.
Yeah, and soul with those incredible vocals.
Yeah, it's like all those genres were the ingredients
Right.
for hip hop.
Exactly. They weren't just like things that came before.
Mm.
They were like essential parts of what made hip-hop happen.
I like that analogy. It's
Yeah.
like, when you look at a painting
Yeah.
and you think about all the colors the artist used. It's like that you got to know the colors to get the full picture.
Exactly. You got to see the whole palette.
So where did all this come together? Where was like the birthplace of hip hop?
Well, the South Bronx
Okay.
in the 1970s. That's where it all started.
The 70s, man, that was a wild time.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was a time and a place with so much energy,
Right.
and people really needed a way to express themselves.
And that's where guys like DJ Kool Herc came in.
Oh, man, DJ Kool Herc. He was a true innovator.
Right.
He wasn't just playing records. He was like transforming them.
I've heard about this.
Yeah, he focused on those instrumental breaks in the songs.
The break beats.
Yeah, exactly, the break beats. And he would extend them.
So he was like looping them.
Yeah, basically looping them. And that created a whole new foundation for the music.
So that was like the birth of hip hop right there.
It was a key moment, for sure.
Yeah.
It created the space where hip-hop as we know it could start to take shape.
Wow. And then you had the MCs.
Yeah, the MCs, they were there at the beginning, too.
What were they doing?
Well, at first, they were mainly there to keep the party going,
Okay.
hype up the crowd.
Right.
But then they started adding their own rhymes and rhythms over the beats.
So it was like a vocal tradition meeting this new DJ style.
Yeah, exactly. It was a perfect match.
Yeah.
When you think about it,
Yeah.
it kind of connects back to African oral traditions.
Oh, wow. Like storytelling and poetry?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Storytelling, poetry, spoken word. All that stuff was part of it. And then you add in the whole social and political situation in the Bronx at the time.
Things were tough back then.
Oh, yeah. It was a tough time. And all of that really shaped this new art form that was being born.
That's so fascinating. So we've got the South Bronx in the 70s, DJ Kool Herc breakbeats, MCs finding their voice, and all this history and culture behind it.
Yep, that's the foundation.
Okay, so what happens next?
Well, that takes us to what we could call the early days of hip-hop,
Okay.
the late 70s and the 1980s.
Now, when I think about early rap,
Yeah.
I always get this feeling like it was super upbeat.
You're right about that. It was very celebratory. Even though times were tough.
Right.
The music often focused on the joy of it all. The energy of the parties and the sense of community.
It was about having a good time.
Yeah. But even then, you could start to hear some deeper lyrics creeping in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for sure. Like, artists were starting to touch on more serious topics.
Interesting. So what was the song that really broke rap into the mainstream?
Oh, I think a lot of people would say Rapper's Delight.
By the Sugar Hill Gang.
Yeah. The Sugar Hill Gang.
Yeah.
That was 1979. And it was huge.
I remember that song. Everyone was singing it.
It was everywhere.
Yeah.
It was so catchy, and it really introduced rap to a much wider audience.
It felt kind of like a novelty at the time, though, didn't it?
Yeah, for some people it did, but there were other artists who were already doing really innovative things back then,
Like who?
like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of them.
Grandmaster Flash was amazing on the turntables.
What do you mean?
He was doing all this crazy stuff with scratching and mixing. Yeah, he developed all these techniques that were totally new.
Wow.
And lyrically, they were pushing boundaries, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like their song, The Message, in 1982.
What was special about that one?
It was a real turning point because it moved away from just party rhymes,
Okay.
and it talked about the struggles of life in the inner city.
So it was like social commentary.
Exactly. It was social commentary.
Yeah.
It showed that rap could be more than just fun.
Right?
It could be a way to talk about serious issues.
That's powerful.
It was a huge shift for hip-hop.
And then you had Run DMC and LL Cool J.
Oh, yeah. They were huge, too.
They were getting played on the radio.
Right. They started getting mainstream attention.
And their production sounded more polished.
Yeah, it was definitely more polished. But they still kept that connection to the streets.
How did they manage that?
They were really good at balancing those two things. They could make music that appealed to a wide audience without losing that core hip-hop energy.
It's a tough balance to strike.
It is, but they did it really well. They showed that hip-hop could be both popular and authentic.
Okay, so we've got the foundation laid, the early innovations, and rap is starting to make its mark on the world.
That's right.
So what comes next?
Well, this takes us into the 1990s.
In the 90s?
Yeah, and the rise of boom bap.
Boom bap.
Yeah.
Now, for people who don't know a lot about hip-hop,
Right.
what is boom bap?
It's a very specific sound.
Okay.
Think about those hard-hitting drums,
Okay.
really strong bass drum and snare.
Like a boom and a bap.
Yeah, exactly. And a bap. And often you'd have samples layered on top of that.
Samples.
Yeah, like taking parts of other songs, usually soul jazz or funk records.
Oh, so they would like put those into the new song?
Yeah, exactly. They'd use those samples to create these rich, textured sounds.
So sampling became a big part of hip-hop production.
Huge. It was like a cornerstone of the sound.
And this boom bap sound is really connected to that East Coast, West Coast rivalry, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's a big part of the whole scene.
Like those different sounds were almost like battle lines.
In a way, they were. On the East Coast, you had producers like Pete Rock,
Okay.
DJ Premier RZA.
Yeah.
They were all masters of this gritty, raw style that became boom bap.
So it was like a real East Coast sound?
Very much so. It felt very connected to the urban experience in cities like New York.
And one name that really stands out from that era is Nas.
Oh, Nas is a legend.
Yeah, his album Illmatic is considered a classic.
It's a masterpiece.
What made it so special?
Well, sonically, it was pure boom bap.
Okay.
The production was incredible. But it was more than that. Nas's lyrics were just amazing.
People really praise his lyricism.
Yeah, he was a master storyteller. He could paint these really vivid pictures with his words.
And Illmatic was all about life in Queensbridge, right?
Yeah, it was a really powerful and honest portrait of life in the projects.
Raw and poetic.
Exactly, raw and poetic.
Yeah.
It set a new standard for hip-hop lyrics.
So that was the East Coast. Now what about the West Coast? What was happening over there?
Well, on the West Coast, you had Dr. Dre's The Chronic
Oh yeah, classic.
and Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style.
Another classic.
And that's where G-Funk emerged.
G-Funk. Okay, so how is that different from boom bap?
Well, if boom bap was all about that raw East Coast energy, G-Funk was smoother, more laid back.
Okay.
They both used funk samples, but G-Funk had these slower beats,
Okay.
deeper bass lines, and a lot of synthesizers. Yeah, synths. It gave it a very different feel,
Yeah.
almost psychedelic.
Interesting. So it was like two completely different vibes.
Totally different. And of course, you can't talk about the East Coast, West Coast rivalry without mentioning Tupac and Biggie.
Tupac and Biggie, man, those guys were icons.
They were larger than life.
Yeah.
They represented those two different styles, and they really embodied that whole conflict.
It's sad how it ended, though.
It was a tragedy,
Mm,
but their impact on hip-hop is undeniable.
for sure. So we've got boom bap on the East Coast, G-Funk on the West Coast.
Right.
But there was more going on in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There were other sounds emerging, too,
Like what?
like groups like Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul.
Oh, yeah, they were different.
They had this more eclectic sound.
Okay.
They used jazz and funk samples, too, but in a more playful way.
Interesting.
And their lyrics were more introspective, sometimes even funny.
So they were kind of like a different side of hip-hop?
Exactly. They showed that hip-hop could be about more than just the streets.
They broadened the scope?
They did. They expanded what hip-hop could be.
Okay, so the 90s were this super diverse time for hip-hop.
It was an explosion of creativity.
Now let's go back to the early 90s for a second.
Okay.
And talk more about gangster rap
All right.
and that whole G-Funk era,
Yeah.
especially in Los Angeles.
It was a huge moment for hip-hop.
You mentioned NWA earlier.
Right.
How important were they in starting that whole gangster rap movement?
NWA was crucial. Their album, Straight Outta Compton, was a game changer.
It was huge.
It really brought gangster rap to the forefront. It was so raw and unfiltered.
And controversial.
Oh, yeah. Incredibly controversial. But it was also a reflection of what was happening in L.A. at the time.
It was like they were speaking for a whole generation.
They were. And they weren't afraid to talk about the tough stuff.
Like police brutality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They challenged the system, and they made people listen.
Their song, Flake the Eye Police, was a huge statement.
It was a powerful statement. It caused a lot of controversy, but it also started a really important conversation.
It forced people to pay attention.
It did. It showed the power of hip-hop to address social issues.
And then you had Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg.
They were the architects of the West Coast sound.
Dre with the production and Snoop with the rhymes.
Yeah, they were a perfect match. Dre created this incredible sonic landscape.
That G-Funk sound.
Yeah, and Snoop's flow was so smooth and laid back.
It was the perfect combination.
It was. They took G-Funk to the masses.
But gangster rap got a lot of criticism too, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of backlash.
People were concerned about the violence and the misogyny.
Right, it was a very controversial style.
But wasn't it also a reflection of what was happening in those communities?
That's a really important point. For a lot of artists, gangster rap wasn't about glorifying violence.
Okay.
It was about reflecting the reality of their lives.
So it was like a form of social commentary.
In a way, it was. It was about showing the world what they were going through.
It's a complex issue for sure.
It is. There's no easy answer.
Okay, so from gangster rap and G-Funk,
Yeah.
we move on to the 2000s
All right.
and trap music.
Trap music. That's when things shifted to the South.
Atlanta specifically, right?
Yeah, Atlanta was the epicenter.
So what makes trap music sound like trap music?
Trap has a very distinct sound.
Okay.
Think about those heavy 808 bass lines.
808s.
Yeah, those really deep bass sounds that you can feel in your chest.
Oh, okay.
And then you've got those fast hi-hats.
Super fast.
Yeah, almost like a machine gun. And the overall production is very dark and atmospheric.
Almost menacing.
Yeah, it can be quite intense.
So who were some of the pioneers of trap?
Well, T.I. was huge, especially with his album, Trap Music.
Trap.
Yeah, that was a landmark album.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had Young Jeezy
Oh, yeah, G.
with his Thug Motivation album.
Classics.
And, of course, Gucci Mane.
Gucci Mane was so prolific.
He released so much music, and he really helped to shape the sound of trap.
And what were the lyrics about in trap music?
Trap lyrics often focused on street life hustling and the drug trade.
The trap?
Exactly, the trap. That's where the name comes from.
So it was about that whole world.
It was.
Yeah.
And it really resonated with a lot of people and eventually crossed over into the mainstream.
It became huge.
Yeah, trap became a dominant force in hip-hop.
So the South had its moment with trap.
Right.
And then in the 2010s,
Yeah.
we saw the rise of drill music.
Drill music.
Yeah.
It came out of Chicago.
And how is drill different from trap?
Well, drill was even darker than trap.
Okay.
More
yeah.
aggressive.
Oh.
The beats were often really eerie and haunting.
Content.
Yeah, and they had those fast hi-hats too. But the bass was even heavier and more distorted.
So it was like an even more intense sound.
It was very raw and confrontational.
And who were the big names in Chicago drill?
Well, Chief Keef was the biggest name.
Chief Keef.
His album, Finally Rich, was a big moment for drill.
And his song, I Don't Like, was everywhere.
Yeah, Chief Keef really popularized the sound and the lyrics of drill.
And the lyrics in drill were pretty dark, weren't they?
They were. They often talked about violence and gang life.
It was a reflection of what was happening in Chicago at the time.
It was. It was a very real and often bleak portrayal of life in certain parts of the city.
And drill didn't stay in Chicago, did it?
No, it spread around the world.
Like UK drill?
Yeah, UK drill is huge.
How was that different from Chicago drill?
UK drill took the Chicago sound and added elements of grime and electronic music.
So it had its own flavor.
It did. It was very unique. And artists like Heady One, Digga D, and Stormzy really blew up.
They became stars.
They did. They brought UK drill to a whole new level.
But UK drill also got caught up in controversy, right?
Yeah, there were concerns about the lyrics and their potential connection to violence.
Just like gangster rap and Chicago drill.
It seems like that's a common thread with these subgenres that tackle tough social issues.
It's a complicated issue.
It is. Music can reflect reality, but it can also influence it.
We've come a long way from the Bronx in the 70s, haven't we?
We have. It's been an incredible
We've
journey.
gone through boom bap, gangster rap, G-funk, trap drill.
And hip-hop has become a global phenomenon.
It's everywhere.
It's one of the biggest genres in the world,
And it's still evolving.
constantly evolving.
Yeah.
It's amazing how adaptable hip-hop is.
It's always changing and blending with other genres.
Yeah, you see elements of pop rock, electronic music, even classical music.
Wow.
It never stands still.
And even with all those new sounds, you can still hear the influence of those earlier subgenres.
Oh, definitely. They all left their mark on hip-hop.
They're part of its DNA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about social media.
Oh, man, social media has changed everything.
It's revolutionized the music industry.
Especially for hip-hop.
Yeah. Platforms like YouTube, SoundCloud, TikTok.
They've given artists a whole new way to connect with fans.
And it's made it easier for new artists to break through.
It's really democratized the genre.
It has. It's given a voice to so many talented people who might not have had a chance before.
It's been amazing to see this whole evolution.
It really has.
From the Bronx to the world.
The story of hip-hop is a story of resilience,
Creativity.
innovation.
And constant reinvention.
It's incredible to think that what started as street music
Right.
is now a global force
It's a testament to the power of music.
and the power of human expression.
Absolutely. Hip-hop has given a voice to so many people.
And it's brought people together from all over the world.
It's universal language.
It's about culture struggle, success.
It's about life.
So where does hip-hop go from here?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It's exciting to think about.
It is. Hip-hop has always been about pushing boundaries.
So who knows what the future holds?
I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me neither. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
It's been a pleasure. And for everyone listening, keep exploring, keep discovering, and keep the music alive. Peace out.